keep on running. I keep on running. I keep on running. Non-stop till they out of breath. Putting in about 1,000 reps. Addicted to the grind like a pound of meth. Schneider-Weiler, how I climb the best.
Welcome to the Football Autobiography Show. It is such a pleasure to be with you all today, wherever in the world you are listening. The Football Autobiography Show is dedicated to taking you on a football journey with football's most interesting players, coaches, trainers, staff, and journalists. Think of these as mini football autobiographies. Each guest will show you how they got where they are now, reveal their techniques for success, and what they've learned along the way. In this episode, I sit down with ex-player and agent at Stellar Group, Cyrille Regis. In his 20-year career, he famously played for West Brom, Coventry City, and Aston Villa, among other teams. At West Brom, he was one of the first prominent black footballers in England and was part of the Three Degrees in the late 70s, along with black players Laurie Cunningham and Batson, becoming one of the first iconic black teams ever. In 1987, he won the FA Cup with Coventry City, and he has been an agent for nearly 20 years. In 2008, Regis received an MBE from the Queen for his services to sport and his work in the charity sector. This prestigious award is given to the most outstanding citizens in the UK, not just footballers. In the interview, I repeatedly refer to his autobiography, My Story, which I can honestly recommend, so if you want to learn a little bit more about him, you should check out that book. In our conversation, Regis talks about why his name actually isn't Cyril, the kind of racism he endured in the 70s and 80s and how he handled it, and what he feels the current state of racism is in football, the death of his best friend, Laurie Cunningham, and how it changed his life, the difficulties of being a born-again Christian in football, and traveling around China in the late 70s. Hear him as you've never heard him before. Enjoy the one and only Cyrille Regis. I'm here with Cyrille Regis. How are you doing today, Cyril?
I'm fine, thanks. Very good.
Thanks for joining the show. It's such a pleasure to have you on. So I want to first get into how did you get the name Cyril?
Well, it's a long story. Cyril's not my first name. I was born in French Guiana. My dad was from St. Lucia. He came to French Guiana to work. Met my mum. He had 3 kids. To cut a long story short, in French Guiana, you have a tradition where you have 3 names, and your middle name is the name of a saint. And so when I was born in Mariposa, which was 2 days away from Cayenne, where I was to be registered, my dad's cousin or nephew was going to Cayenne, and my dad said to his nephew, when you get to Cayenne, register my child. And so by the time his nephew got to Cayenne, he forgot my name, my full name. So on my birth certificate, it's got Cyrille Regis. And so my actual name is Gilbert Cyrille, Saint Cyrille Regis. And so up till I was 5 years old in French Guiana, I was known as Gilbert. When I came to England, my mother didn't want no confusion. How come everybody's calling him Gilbert and it's only Cyrille Regis on his birth certificate? So she's told everybody, just call him Cyril. And that's how I'm called, Cyrille Regis. But really, I went back to French Guiana 2 months ago. My grandmother's 100 and she calls me Gilbert. She doesn't know me as Cyril. Yeah. So my name is, technically, my name should be Gilbert Cyril or Cyrille Regis.
So which name do you prefer? Which name do you like the sound of better?
Gilbert sounds quite, it's a lovely French word in French. Yeah, I like the French word. The French language is beautiful. Gilbert sounds great, but I'm used to Cyril, Big C, whatever, a few other names as well, but no, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, my favorite name that I saw that you go by, or nickname, is Reggae.
Reggae, yeah. Brendan Batson calls me Reggae. A friend of mine calls me Cyrille, Big Man, Big C. I mean, it's one of the things with football, you know, you always shorten somebody's names. Robbo, Benno, Del Boy, TG, LC. We just shorten people's names to make it more comfortable and much more endearing.
Yeah. And so why did your parents decide to come over to England? Like
most African Caribbeans back in the days, for work. My dad came in 62 for work. He was a labourer, came over to labour. We came in 63. I mean, my mum, my brother and myself, we came on the Ascania and Cunard line by boat. Took us 3 weeks, I think, 2-3 weeks to get over here. I was 5. Came over in 63. Lived in one room in Portobello Road in London. And, oh man, that Christmas 63 was freezing. I still remember it now as a 5-year-old. Coming from the Caribbean and then coming to 2-3 foot of snow, which was... It was tough. I think it was more tougher for my mum and dad. I mean, as a kid, it's all new, it's all fresh. You know, you got no worries. You're just playing around and getting used to new surroundings. But for my mum and dad, it was highly pressurized. It wasn't a great time. Looking back.
And how did they adapt, and how did you adapt to the new surroundings and the new city?
Well, I think I adapted quite well. I mean, kids do generally. I think, you know, new friends, different climate. It's all exciting. But my parents, you know, labour jobs, and I think that the real problem was housing. The real problem for my mum and dad was housing. England wanted loads of African Caribbeans to come over from the Commonwealth to do the work over here, but the people wasn't so welcoming in terms of, you know, they'll tell you for years in London you see signs saying no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. So getting accommodation was tough, and to cut long story short, come to a point in our lives where we were split up because we couldn't get accommodation. My mother and brother and younger sister was in the Salvation Army in East End. My sister was in a girls' home in Neasden, and me and my younger brother was in a convent in Aldershot for nearly a year because we couldn't get housing. And that was tough, especially my younger brother. He was 3 years old and very close to his mum. Tough for my mum. She had to be out of the Salvation Army building at 6 o'clock in the morning and not come back in till 6. And, you know, you just come to a country, within a year your whole family is dispersed over England, you know, over London. It's tough. But we finally got 2 up, 2 down, toilet outside, no bathroom in Stonebridge, and we were together as a family.
And so that experience living in a convent, how did that affect you going forward? It was a year, but did it affect you much deeper or have long-lasting effects?
I think I can't think of anything negative that has affected me on.
Oh no, I was expecting positive.
Yeah, I think, yeah, but nun's looking after you, going to school, getting 3 meals a day in a safe environment, you know, playing with loads of kids, going on to the Arboretum in Aldershot with the mosquitoes and gnats and butterflies, and it was a real good time. It was a real good time being a 9-year-old because it was exciting. Mum came down every 2 weeks, and you got a little bit more understanding of the situation. So yes, you're going to come back one day, but at this moment in time, it was great fun. But for my mum, my younger brother, and no, it was a tough time. Being a 3-year-old, missing his mum, and being in the convent for 3 days, we found his older brother as solace, as comfort. Then it got to the point my brother had to have his cot or his bed next to mine. Yeah. Because he missed his mum so much.
Yeah, well, you kind of had to be, mother and father in one, and
absolutely.
I'm sure it helped you grow up really
well,
fast.
Yeah, and I think from that point of view, looking back, I've always been fairly self-sufficient. Yeah, get on with things, and not in a proud way, but if I want things done, I'll go and do it. It's down to me.
You described some of your living arrangements early on when you came over, and some of the limited means that your family had. How did that shape your character or build your character going forward?
Well, I think you see your parents work, you see how hard they work, but it's a loving relationship, very close, very tight, and I look at my dad. It was typical 50s, 60s dad, very loving, very hard-working, but a bit distant, in terms of sitting you down, telling you about the things of life. But when I look back at his life, he had bigger issues. I mean, housing, put foot on the table, having 2 jobs. And so he was focused at that. And when I look back at life, I can remember one time, I reflected on my life. Here I am, I'm in Street. I've got a 4-bedroom house, 2 holidays, 2 cars, all the wealth in the world. And I'm looking at I'm thinking about me as a dad. I'm looking at my dad coming over here, 5 kids, working 2 jobs, all the stresses and strains of no housing. And I remember writing my dad and just saying thank you. You know what? Could never bailed out.
And what did he say in return?
Thank you, son. But the fact my dad didn't bail out, the guy, you know what? I can't handle this. You know what? I'm off. The fact he didn't do that and hang in there, you know what? I had to say thank you.
There's a phrase that stuck out in the book that you wrote that was "get a trade." Can you explain the reasoning for that?
Get a trade. I think the whole chapter is down to the book. Get a trade. As I said, my dad was typical 50s, 60s dad. Didn't say a lot, but acted a lot. In terms of never gave me his inner thoughts. But his desire for us was to do better than what he did. And he was a labourer working in wall sausages, packing shells and boxes and that kind of stuff. And he wanted a better for us. And I always just say, get a trade. In his mind was, once you've had a trade, you can earn, you can go around the world, you got something more than just a labourer. And for years, get that trade. And so it's fixed in my mind, get a trade. And so I left school and got a trade as apprentice electrician. So I think from there, looking back, my dad saw me as a man. We don't have a rites of passage as other cultures do. But my dad's his old thing for his children to come over here and get a good good education and get something he didn't get, a trade or a profession. And I think at 16, leaving home, getting a job as an electrician, I felt my dad felt he'd done his job. Do you know what I mean? He'd done his job. It's not over, but he's got an apprenticeship for 4 years. He's getting a trade. And so I think for him, in our mind, it's a massive step to that. He's got his children or his third child to get a trade, and he's got something in his life. So it made the journey justifiable.
And so you went to trade school for 3 years, right?
I got a job before I passed my exams. I wanted to get into the electronics business with British Telecom, but I think all the apprenticeship has gone. So I went for an interview and then exams in Duncan and Watson in Kilburn, Cricklewood. Done some internal exams, and it took me on a 4-year apprenticeship to be electrician. Installation, so I've done that for 3 years. So I'm fully qualified B grade electrician.
Yeah, so give them a call if you have any appliances that need fixing.
The rules and regulations changed somewhat since 1977, so no, I don't touch it now. Yeah. But yeah, I was quite accomplished electrician.
Yeah, and so you thought you were going to do that?
That was my trade. Yeah, that was what I thought I was going to do the rest of my life.
And so what was the turning point where you thought, I'm not going to be an electrician, I'm going to be a footballer?
Well, between all that, I always played football. I mean, since I came into England, I can't remember playing football in I was like 5 in French Guiana, but I can remember playing football in the playground. Busted ball, tennis ball, whatever, in school, in the playground, as in primary school, because you didn't have any sort of organised football till I was 11. So you played in the playground with your mates, and I can remember for years my mum buying new pairs of shoes, and within 2-3 weeks they're all busted and broke because I'm kicking balls all around the place. She's going mad at me. But I always played football, always loved football, always played football and cricket. But I always loved sport. I always loved the camaraderie of sport. I left primary school, went to secondary school. I couldn't get in the school team until I was about 13. So I moved from being a right winger to a centre forward at about 12, 13, got in the school team and just enjoyed scoring goals, enjoyed being with friends, enjoyed the banter, and I mean, just really, really, I think from then on, really fell in love with football. Not wanting to be a player, just love playing football. I think that's why with kids you got to expose them to different aspects of life. Because until you're exposed to somebody, you don't know whether, God, this grabs me. You read someone like Rory McIlroy, his dad introduced him to a golf club when he was 2 years old, and it grabs him and he flies with it. And I think if you can introduce children to different aspects, something connects. It could be golf, it could be music, it could be piano, it could be anything. All of a sudden, it connects, and that love and desire and passion arises, and you want to do it. You want to do it to a point where my mum and dad could correct me by saying, if you don't behave yourself, not playing football Saturday. And it's like, oh no, because you want to play football so much. And while I was a apprentice electrician, I still played football Sunday morning. That's where I got discovered.
A lot of players don't get discovered quite as late as you got discovered. What reason do you think it took so long?
I was very late. I mean, I think the culture back then was you left school and you went for trials at 16. Now they've got kids at 8 in academies, so it's a different culture. I was never, the market would turn around and say, never considered good enough to, I never asked for a trial, and nobody asked me to come in and have a trial. So the market would say, well, no one deemed me good enough. So I just played football, get on with my electrician's work, and enjoyed playing football on Sunday mornings with my friends, with Ryder Brent Valley. But football's and life is funny. It's sometimes football is people's opinion. It's subjective. And in my second year, at 18, I've been playing football on a Sunday morning. I used to play for my youth club, my church team. Just loved playing football. Left school, got a job, but still played with my school friends. We formed a team called Ryder Brent Valley. We still played in the Sunday morning Acton League, in different leagues. And then when I was 18, we played in the Regent's Park League. So we played in Regent's Park Sunday mornings all the time. And the story goes, John Sullivan, who was the manager, stroke owner, stroke director, chairman of Moseley Football Club, he had one or two, or just one man and his dog, patrolling Regent's Park, looking for potential players, sort of thing, you know, something like a scout. Anyway, he must have seen our team playing, recommended 3 of us who were 18. So John Sullivan come down, he went, oh yeah, it's not bad. Come to Moseley. And me, John O'Riordan and Philip Webster went to Moseley, played a couple of games. John in his book said, you know, he played him as a 17-year-old against men, against Tottenham Mitcham. And his number 2 was saying, you can't put an 18-year-old in front of men. He went, no, he'll be all right, We went out there, equipped myself well, and myself and John O'Riordan got a contract. So I started to get paid £5 a week to play football, which was tough. in the sense that I'm an apprentice electrician. My firm was brilliant. I got to say, you don't get this without, when you get to a certain level in life, you look back. If my firm at the time wasn't accommodating, it couldn't happen. On a Tuesday and a Thursday, I had to leave work at 2, 3 in the afternoon. I never drove on the bus or a train. John used to pick me up. He used to pick me up in this great big Pontiac Firebird, gold Pontiac Firebird. He used to race down to Moseley, get on the coach, play a game of football wherever at 7:30, come back to the clubhouse, have an obligatory couple of pints, get home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and get up at 6 to go across London to do an 8-hour shift in the building site. And that was tough. You're on the tube, you're falling asleep, you're missing your stop, you're getting in late, you're getting a bollocking from the foreman, you're late. But they let me off. They knew I had a passion for football. I'd done that for a year, and that's the first time I got paid, which is great. When you're earning, 15, 16 pounds a week, and you're getting paid £5, £5 to play football, it's decent money. And I thought, yeah, I like this, So, but physically very tough. Non-league and senior league was very tough, but great grounding. Done quite well there. Scored 24, 25 goals. The goalkeeper from Hayes came to, Ian Bath, his name, came to Moseley and recommended me to Hayes. Cut long story short, I left Moseley. I went to Hayes. I got paid 13 quid a week. I was 18/19, 13 quid a week, earning 26, 27 pounds. All of a sudden, it's quite nice, extra money, kicking the ball, it's nice. And when I was at Hayes, I played quite well, and everybody was saying, you could make it. And I think that's when it germinated that you could make it. Some of the older players, like people who've played in the league before, would come down and were scoring goals, and there's loads of kind of rumours, Arsenal are watching you today, or Millwall's coming down watching you, and Reading's watching you, and yeah. There's 2 lads who used to look after me, Bobby Wiles and Alan Carrington, used to pick me up and they used to call me Nugget. You got a chance, mate, you got a chance, you're a good player, you got a chance, people will keep going. But at one time, Millwall came in, Gordon Jago came in, but he wanted to buy me, and I think his board says, not good enough, or I'm not going to give you the £5,000-10,000 that would cost to buy Cyrille Regis. So I just carried on playing football and being an electrician.
I mean, there's so many different ways we could go, but I'm curious, at the point when you're getting approached by all these clubs, I mean, you just, as you said, care about football. Yeah. So what was your thinking or direction going forward? You're like, okay, obviously you didn't have an agent, don't, I mean, so how are you handling this process as it's coming?
Just go and play football. Nothing happens without you playing football and playing well. And then that's when it started germinating in my mind that I could become a professional footballer. But in the back of my mind, I've got to get a trade.
Yeah.
I've got to get a trade, so my focus is get a trade. I still haven't passed my exams. I'm still not a qualified electrician. I'm an apprentice. So when I was at Hayes, I took my exams in sort of like April, May, 77. So I passed my exams, and then West Brom Albion came in for me in May 77. So when Hayes come up to me and said, West Brom are coming for you, they've put in a bid in for you of £5,000, over £5,000, over that. I went to my dad and I said, Dad, West Brom are coming for me. Birmingham. I didn't even know where West Brom was, to be quite fair. In London, you don't get past Watford, do you? And my dad was very black and white. Son, you've got your trade. So go on. If it doesn't work out, come back and be an electrician. and he gave me all his blessing. I don't think he would have given his blessing if I hadn't passed my exams as a fully qualified electrician, but that was his aim for me, that was a vision for me to get a trade, so that no matter what happens in life, I could, if I want to go across the road, back to the Caribbean, all around the world, I've got a trade, so I could always earn something somewhere. And because I had that, I passed my exams. My dad was fully satisfied that, yeah, go to Birmingham, try like I've been a professional footballer. If it doesn't work out, always come back. And my job was the same. Higgins and Cattle, I worked for. When I said, listen, I've got a chance to be a professional footballer, they went, yeah, go on. But if it doesn't work out, come back here and have a job. So how could I lose? You know, go up there, up to Birmingham, try and be a professional footballer. It's no guarantee. But if it didn't work out, weren't for you, homesick, not good enough, it's only a year's contract. West Brom said thanks, but no thanks. And I always come back and pick up where I left off.
And so what was your first game like? I mean, because you played pretty early on. So take me through that entire first day, or from when you found out that you would be playing in the game.
There's a string of events that comes up to that. Johnny Giles was a manager when I signed. Ronnie Allen was the chief scout. Ronnie Allen, who played for West Brom, played for England, a great centre forward. He was the chief scout. He saw me play at Hayes. He recommended me to West Brom, and West Brom bought me. By the time I still worked up to June, pre-season didn't start till July. I think I left about 2 weeks before leaving London at the 1st of July to come up to pre-season training. Lived with a lovely lady called Mrs. Gross, who's passed away now. Johnny Giles had resigned, but Ronnie Allen, who was the chief scout, he became the manager. So convergence of events was happening. So I think I played in reserves, played 2-3 times in reserves. And because I played against men, as a 19-year-old, it wasn't an issue. A lot of boys those days never played against men. They played against their own peers at 18. I've been playing against men since I was 17, so playing against men was an issue for me. But an apprentice, you played against your own age group. And so Ronnie Allen became the manager. I played quite well in the reserves, a couple of pre-season games. And there was a couple of injuries. I think David Cross, Tony Brown was injured. And I was doing quite well in the reserves. And Ronnie Allen, the chief scout who recommended me, who was a forward himself, on that Tuesday night, we got Rotherham at home. And we played, I played 2 or 3 games, I said before, played quite well. Ronnie Allen comes up to me and said, Cyrille, get home. You're starting tonight. Now, of course, you want that, but reality sets in. It's like, oh my God, go home. You try and sleep in the afternoon, you can't, you're making your debut. Big stadium, second division side, Rotherham, you hardly know your teammates. You've only been in the door 2 months, 3 months, if that. So you don't, and those days you never mixed with the first team. So you had the second string, the stiffs, the reserves, and the first team. So you don't know them. You see them around, you might say hello, but you don't know them personally. And so this day, I walked from my digs about 3/4 of a mile up Halfords Lane and walked in the dressing room with the first team. Woody Johnson, Brian Robson, Laurie, Cunningham, Derek Staden were getting changed. All pros. There's something about pros. There's a confidence there. They're playing in the Premiership. They fell first division. They're playing in the second division side. They should walk all over them. So there's a confidence of, it's not Man United or Liverpool where it's like, it's a bit tough game. This is Rotherham, so they're expected. So there's an air of confidence and it's only Rotherham. We're playing well, quite well, and I'm walking in there and I'm seeing everybody cool and comfortable, and I'm from London. You're blagging it, you're fronting it, you put on a show, but deep down in your heart, your mind, you're pooping yourself really. And there's a mixture of excitement and fear and anxiousness, because before that I only played in front of 500 people. That night there was 15,000, and it was scary. It was scary. And you're looking at your peers are looking at you, and one of the things is adamant. Your peers looking, thinking, is it good enough to be in our team? Can he control the ball and do the right things in the right way? Because there's nothing frustrating than you're passing the ball to somebody who can't control it, and you got a move going and breaks down on you, and can you make the right decision? So I'm looking and they're thinking, who's this big black lad from London, you know? Is he worthy to be in our side? You know, because like they want to win. They want to trust your teammates, that if you've got the skill, the touch to make things happen. At the same time, football, there's not a lot of black guys playing around. We had Laurie Cunningham in the side. He bought from Leighton Orient for £100,000. He was there, great player. He was there, and so we had a kinship. But on that day, I didn't know Laurie, and I went out there and played the game. And it's scary. You've only played in front of 500 people before, 15,000. I mean, it's not a full house, it's half full. Not even half full, because the album used to have 38,000. It's like third full. But to me, it's full. It's 15,000 people. And so it is a mixture of fear and excitement, and adrenaline and apprehension. And you just go back to your default setting and just work hard. Run around a default setting and affect the game. Just play naturally as you do. Anyway, the first half, I missed a couple of chances. Second half, we're 2-0 up and we get a penalty. Tony Brown, who I said didn't play for it because of injury. Willie Johnson, the great Willie Johnson, great player for Rangers and in Scotland. He was designated to take the penalty. And for a reason I've never known why, Willie picks up the ball and the crowd started singing, Cyrille! Cyrille! So they want me to take the penalty. Willie Johnson looked at me and he's offered me the ball in front of 15,000 people. I've taken the ball, and I don't take penalties. When I was playing around Brent Valley, Neil Dolan took penalties. At West Brom, as I said, Tony Brown took penalties. So the crowd's going, Cyrille. I don't take penalties. It's not what I do. Willie Johnson's offered me the ball, and at that moment, I took it. I took the ball, put it down, scored another one, and career's kicked off.
Boom.
Saturday, we played Middlesbrough, first team. Ronnie Allen, he didn't leave me out. Scored 2 goals. The fans are shouting for me. He said, I can't leave him out. Pushed me against a Premiership side, the old First Division side, Middlesbrough, which is another level up. They had big, strong centre-halves in there, and you're thinking, how's this lad's going to handle it? And the papers are saying, who's this new Cyrille Regis? But he's coming across some Premiership, First Division players now. Anyway, ball gets in. I'm a striker, so everything's made for me. I'm in the line. I put the ball in the back of the net. Anyway, I pick up this ball on the halfway line. I've miscontrolled it, actually. I flipped it around the lad. I've gone round one, gone round another. I've hit it, scored a goal from the halfway line. The crowd's gone bananas. Anyway, from that there on, I end up scoring 6 goals in 10 games, and for another 7 years, hardly ever off the side.
I mean, you got the crowd behind you, like early on, and then that was all you needed, really. Well, not all you needed, but
listen. At the end of the day, like any job, is outcomes. That's what they want, outcomes. If you're a striker, score goals. Outcomes. And we had an exciting side. I mean, it was easier for me to assimilate in the side. It'd been harder if the side was poor. Coming in, a poor side, making bad decisions, no morale, no confidence. But I came into a side who was in Europe on a regular basis. Side under Johnny Giles, who played a lovely form of football, had some highly talented players who played internationally. Laurie Cunningham, Tony Brown, Mr. Albion, Tony Brown, Derek Stame. You had a good side, so it's easier for a young player to come in where you got confident senior players who knew, understood the game, who could look after me. If you was in a poor side, poor morale, lacking confidence, a young kid coming in there where the senior players are looking after themselves because they're not playing well, they're fighting with confidence and managers give them a bollock in, they're looking after their own game. But when you're in a team that's confident, individuals confident, it's easier for a young lad to come in and the lads will go, come in, drop off, well done, Big C, hey, don't do that, give your bollock in the right way. And so you could come in much better. And being a forward, when you got creativity around you, you just end the line, scoring goals, doing your bit, then yeah, it worked.
And so I want to get into the other major a theme, kind of especially in your early career, which was race. So you said Laurie Cunningham came in at the same time as you, and then the next year Brendan Batson came in, and you became known as the 3 Degrees. But before we get into some of the on the field racism that you three had to endure, give people a context, people who didn't grow up in the 70s in England, what was racism or the race culture like then, and also what experiences did you have with it before football?
I think there's two aspects. I think what sort of climate it was for black footballers and what my personal experience was of racism back then. One, my personal, apart from, it's only my personal experience, apart from the housing situation, I think my parents had more experience of racism than I did, in terms of getting jobs, in terms of housing. We ended up in a quite safe environment from a racist point of view. I said before, trying to get housing, you had no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. So consequently, I ended up in a black Irish community who suffered racism from the English, basically. And so my experience, I never had racism at school. I went to Irish Catholic school. So we were kindred spirits, basically. And I went to Irish Catholic church. And so we had the same issues in terms of housing, in terms of the English didn't want us there. So I had no prejudice from the Irish people. We were just friends, we went to the same school, played the same team, had the same issues with housing and the English. So I wasn't in a school where I was the only black person with loads of white English people who were racist or never knew black people. I think the Irish people, there was a kindred spirit there, if I understand, if that's the word. So I never endured any racism from white people to the point where it really affected me, or I could say, this happened to me. I can't remember an instant like that. So I grew up fairly in a black Irish Catholic community, which is quite safe. We all got on, great bunch of lads, played with them, had around them. No, I can't really think of any racism that really, in my mind, I hate white people, or there's an angst and anger. I can't say that ever happened to me. And so from that point of view, it was fine. But another point of view is football-wise, there was issues with the coaches and managers and scouts. From their own prejudices, there was this feeling of the black players, they can't handle the cold weather, they're fancy dans, they've got enough courage, no courage, or they're too laid back, and there was all these myths and prejudices against black players. And so in the 70s, in the early 70s, you had a couple of black players, especially at West Ham, Clyde Best, who endured racism from his own fans at West Ham. And there were a couple of other black players there in the early 70s, the Charles brothers, I think. at West Ham with Clyde Best. But the 70s, there was a couple of sprinkling of black players playing in lower leagues. You know, Luther Blissett, Ricky Hill, Cess Pod, a couple of players at Notts County, but there wasn't any in the Premiership in the late 70s. Laurie Cunningham was one of the first. He was bought by West Brom for £100,000 in Leyton Orient, and he was at that time in the first team, the first black player. So you can imagine the Premiership with only one black player, and that's Laurie Cunningham. That year, 77, Forest came up, and West Brom. I was there at West Brom, and Brendan Batson came when Ronnie Allen left. Ron Atkinson bought his captain from Cambridge, who was Brendan Batson, and so Christmas 77, going into 78, we had 3 black players at West Brom, and Forest were up, and we had Viv Anderson at Forest, and they were basically the 4 black guys playing in the whole league at that time. And so therefore you can imagine the racism from the opposition, having 3 black guys in one side. But I've got to say, the Albion fans, fabulous. Absolutely. I mean, you've got 3 black guys on your side. You know, how, you know, they could have been prejudicial. I'm sure a couple of them were, but in the main, they were embracing. Because we played good football. We were good footballers, and as well, we had a very, very good side, which helped tremendously. And I think if there's 3 black guys in a side that was playing poor, it would have been, black guys, you know, not playing well. But we played well. We had a very, very good side. We were in the top 4, top 3, year in, year out. And so it negated any aspect of, you know, the black guys bring you down because you're not good enough. And I think managers and your players, they wouldn't accept it if you weren't good enough. They wouldn't accept it, because in the dressing room it can be quite brutal. If you're not doing your job, players will tell you, whether you're black, white, or whatever, you're poo. They'll tell you in your face, you're shit. You know, do your job. They want to win. If you're not doing your job, they'll tell you. And you've got strong characters in the dressing room. So if you're not doing your job, and the whole thing about football is competition for places. Sport is. Team sport is. So if you're not doing your job, they just fill your place with somebody else. They put you out the side, fill your place with somebody else. So you got to merit being in the side. By the manager and your teammates, you got to merit being in the side. You don't get in the side and stay in the side because you're a nice lad. No, you're doing your job. So our focus is, if I want to play football, I've got to play well enough that the manager picks me next week. That's it. That's your job. That is your sole focus. What comes after that is the ripple effect. But your sole focus as a young player is playing well enough that I'm in the side the following game.
And so when you were out there and you heard some of those racist chants, first, you know, how did it make you feel? Like maybe the first time or the second time, and then, you know, since obviously Laurie was on your team, and then Brandon, what were your conversations like with them after that?
Well, it was anger. You know, I think there's 2 things. There's anger. There's anger, and you're thinking, well, because I've never experienced this. It might have been 1 or 2 when I was at Hayes and Moseley, but nothing as vociferous as 10,000 fans singing racist abuse. But you go, in your head, you made you angry. I mean, calling you nigger, bananas. I had a bullet for the post in 1980-81, playing for England. You know, chanting. You know, you name it, we had it thrown at us. Just so. In our minds, and I think in our minds it made you angry. It did. You know, all these 10,000 opposition fans calling you nigger and you black so-and-so, look in your eyes and that venom and anger. And you're thinking, well, it made you angry. But we chose to internalize the anger and use as motivation. we chose to do that. We could have chose, I'm not playing no more. We could have chose, I want to go home. Oh, they're calling me names, I don't want to play football no more. I think we chose to go, right, we're going to show how good we are. We're going to show you how good we are. We're going to use that negative into a positive, into motivation, say, right, we're going to work hard, because we had a very good side. You work hard, put that ball in the back of the net, get our 2 points, and get away from there. And that's what we've done. Another aspect which you realise, it was confined to the stadium. And so you got a mob mentality. And what percentage of them were actual racists, or what percentage of them were just few beers, get into crowd mentality, let's call that black person a nigger mentality, but deep down they're not. So you get a crowd mentality, and it was confined to the stadium. Now, if that racism or that anger was, if I'm walking down through the streets of Birmingham or London, or they're putting stones through my house, intimidating my wife or my kids, it's a different story. It's a totally different story. But none of that happened. So you realise it's confined to the stadium. It's confined to the stadium. But you realise you've got armoury. Your armoury is your talent, and a very, very good side. Right, let's work hard. Let's beat this side. Let's turn the negative into positive. The more you shout at me, the more I get angrier, the better I play. It's like, come on, give it to me. So that was our thought process. Shout at me, right, roll myself up, try a bit harder, put the ball in the back of the net. We had a very, very good side. I don't think what would have happened if we never had a good side. If we were losing all the time, it would be justification. But the side was excellent. We played with panache, with style, we were beating teams, and whatever they could say, they can say, yeah, the black so-and-sos, but the good players.
So now when you hear stories of, I mean, this is 40 years later, when you hear stories like when Sully Montari, has talked recently about this, of it still happening today, how do you feel? And I mean, do you talk to other players from your day about what's happening today? And
yeah, I think it's a totally different environment. Football's moved on a lot, and when you do get it, it's not in the numbers. I'm not, and there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think you should have zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. In our day, it took years. I think let's kick it out. Football is only developed in the early 90s. And authorities trying to stamp out racism later on in life. And I think where racism rears its ugly head, you got to be more vociferous about it. For action's got to be really strong. And I think it hasn't been in the past, but it's really strong. Now I think football's come a long way. You still find it happening, but when it does happen, then you can't have punitive measures. You can't. What can a player do? Walk off? Did they win? I think the authorities got to stump down it very, very hard. And thank God you find it in small pockets now in some of the Eastern European countries. England every now and then, Europe every now and then, you still find it. But when you raise it ugly head, then you've got to stamp down on it. Let me qualify this, but the saying that racism is a question of the heart. It's not a question of law. You can put all the laws, there's all the laws in the world about murder and stealing, but it still happens. So racism is a question of your heart. You can't put a law in your heart because people are still going to do it. But when it does rear its head, when murder happens or stealing happens or prejudice happens, then the law's got to be strong enough to deal with it. Someone that does it. And I think we're getting there. And so, it's, when I look at, and we have got there from a football point of view, if you look at the Premiership now, you tell me what team ain't got at least 3 or 4 black players in their side. They're fully incorporated, they're there, they're valued, they're getting well paid, and no one sees their colour. We haven't got Asians from India so that's another aspect you look at. But in terms of black footballers, I mean, you look at England's side. I look England under 16, 17, 18s, first team, 5, 6, 7 black players in. So we've come a long, long way, and it's great to see.
I want to jump ahead to some other things that you really address in your book, which one of the things that was interesting was you talk about extramarital affairs in it, which I thought was quite revealing. And you talk about when you had a reunion with some ex-players that 90% of them had fallen out with their first wife, which means, incidentally, the opposite, that 10% did stay with their first wife. This is a problem that all athletes face, not just footballers.
Football.
Yeah. But how did those 10% actually stay, and how did they get the right mix of home and job and social? Because it seems like it's an issue that challenged you.
I don't know, but I don't know. I think you'd have to ask them who's. But what I can do, what I can see, is that one, they were much more professional than us. Two, they weren't party animals, and three, they were more mature, in the sense that they made a vow to their partners and stuck to it. Or if they did and they got caught, they worked it out and they stayed together. And I think it's not over, when you get to the point, it's just not over one affair, it's serious affairs.
Yeah.
So it's not over one. So I don't know their situation, but they've worked it out and their wife stayed with them. But for 70-80% of footballers, and I think what it is temptation. You get married for the right reasons, because you fall in love, want wife and kids and home, and it's great to be stable when you're a footballer. You don't want chaos in your life. It's great to be stable, but you have temptation. You have temptation as an ordinary man. You have temptation, but you're a footballer with wealth, money, time, adulation. It's magnified. It's magnified to unprecedented levels, where it's there in your face all the time. And when you're 19, 20, 21, you got fame, money, time in your hands, adulation, wealth, prestige. It's tempting, and being weak, basically. It's weak. You're just weak. You're just weak in the moment, in the time, and it was the culture. It's a culture of sport. It's a culture of football. It's a culture. It's a lads culture. You're doing things that children do in the playground and getting seriously wealthy with it, with all the trappings that comes with it. And so it takes a strong, and you're just not mature enough to turn around and say no. I mean, it's just not. So really, you look back, you see, unless you're really mature, lots of sportsmen or people in those areas don't get married till it's all over. Don't get married till you're really, really sure that you're going to be one man, one woman, because there's temptation out there, and a lot are, some aren't. And football and sport. It's a very it's all about the individual. It's all about the player. I mean, if the club comes up and says, "Sure, we've got a chance. We've got to go China 3 days' time," you go. Your wife, your kids, the grandmother, or if they're ill, they're going through issues, got to go. It's your job. You travel the world, so it's very, very individualistic within the family environment. You just can't say, "Oh, sorry, Ron, I can't go to China. My daughter's got a first day at school." Just can't do it. You drop everything and go. So the whole life is around the athlete.
Well, you went to China in 1977 or 78.
China.
First English club.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying, if the club says, "Well, we've organised a game in Southampton," you can't say, "Well, my wife, my kids got." So the footballer's life, their family is around the individual. But our individual, the culture back then in football was work hard, play hard. I mean, it was a very amateurish culture. Drinking. I mean, we finished football at 12 o'clock. What you do? I'll come up from London. I was bored. When I come up from London, I'm used to working every day till 5, getting home at 5, 6 in the morning. As a professional footballer, I was finishing at 12. I'm bored. I'm like, what do I do? So you get into the life of football, and back then, down a pub, have a drink, down a pub, chat around, and of course, a few drinks. That was the culture. That was the culture. I just fell into the culture. In fact, my debut at the Albion, I come out, I finished the game, interviews, whatever it is, went to the Hawthorns pub, right next door to the Albion, and I got out at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it was drinking, it was partying, it was that culture. Far from it now, but back then every club done it. It was how it was. It was work hard, play harder, and you got into a mode. And the thing is, you were living that lifestyle, but still playing well Saturday. So I think you would stop it if you weren't playing well, but you got into a rhythm that you could party, you can rave, you can do that till Wednesday, try a bit on a Thursday, but 2 or 3 days of focus. Come Saturday, you're playing football, you're on it, you're performing. So you know what? And that was the culture. Managers, you know what? Come Saturday, you're performing, do what you want. That's what it was. So if you can get away with whatever you got away with and play with on a Saturday and play well Saturday, managers at the time didn't care what you'd done. Didn't care. It wasn't that professional. It wasn't like now, where the stakes are higher and you look after your body, and you couldn't get away with it now. And socially you couldn't get away with it now. But back then, you could do whatever you want, but come Saturday, perform. And as long as you've done that, no one really bothered about your lifestyle.
And so what changed your lifestyle around? What event precipitated that change?
Well, I think as human beings, you know it's wrong because, you know, you're married. You're going out getting drunk, other women, you're hurting your wife, you're hurting other ladies, you're using them for your own lusts, really. You know you're doing wrong. Your consciousness tells you that. You know it's wrong. So you want to change. You see the hurt you're doing on your wife, and so you want to change, but you haven't got the character to change. Or you're in with the boys, aren't you? Yeah. You know it's wrong, but the boys are going, come on, big man, come have a pint, let's go down to a nightclub, let's do this. And so you know it's changing. You know you should be home with your wife and kids, but the boys are there. You know, you get into a groove, and basically you're selfish. You basically self-existence. It's all about you. The whole world revolves around you, and consciously you know you're doing wrong, but who cares? But deep down in the quiet moments, you know you're wrong. You know you're hurting people. You know you spend more time with your kids. You know you're hurting other women and your wives. You know that. You can't say you're not. But having the character to stop. Having the character to say, I'm not going to do this no more. And one lacked character.
I read that the death of Laurie really is a major turning point. In many ways, but can you kind of explain
Well, I only played with Laurie for 2 years. Very good friend of mine. Brendan was a little bit older. He was 5 years older than me, 2 years older than Laurie, and he was married with kids. Laurie had a steady girlfriend. I had a girlfriend, but we were still the lads, and so we were tight. Laurie left in '79 to Real Madrid. Unbelievable, brilliant. I mean, he was a great player. I can eulogise for hours about him. But we were very, very close. He left West Brom in 79 Real Madrid. But we always went on holiday, end of the season in the summer. Either we went over there to Ibiza or Madrid, or he came over here. We had a few drinks, talk about old times on the phone. We're buddies. But back in 1988, Laurie died in a car crash. Laurie, my best friend, I was at Coventry at the time. I spoke to Laurie on the Wednesday. He was going to come over to England. We're going to buddy up, have a few beers, talk about all things, mates. Got a call Friday, Laurie on the way home died, smashed the car, door open, banged his head, and died in hospital. And it was, whoa, my best friend. But it brought me back 2 years prior to that. Me and Laurie were in Madrid. We went out shopping, afternoon, started drinking a bit more, went to a tapas bar, went to another bar, went to a nightclub. We had a few beers. Coming home at 1, 2 in the morning, Laurie was driving. On the way home to his house in Madrid, Laurie sleeps at the wheel, or whatever happened. It hits a side barrier. The car rolled over 3 or 4 times, just skidding its roof. This is about 2, 3 in the morning. For whatever reason, we had a seatbelt on. We end up upside down in the car, glass and sparks and everywhere. We end up upside down, and on our seatbelts, we pushed the car the right way up, and we got a lift down. And you just think one of those things, I was lucky to escape, and you move on with your life. But when Laurie died 2 years later, it was, whoa. My best friend had died. And there were so many questions in my heart about, where's Laurie now? Is there life after death? If I'd have died, where I would be? Is there heaven, is there hell? But one of the biggest things was, Laurie's life was parallel to mine. Wealth, money, adulation, houses, cars, the whole thing. And it says, you know what, you're successful. You're the man. You are everything everybody would want. But when Laurie died, he left everything behind. And I hit him like a sledgehammer. So he left everything behind. So all these things I thought was important, right up there. Laurie, his life was parallel to mine, I left it all behind. So in my mind, it's like, so what's important? What's important? What can I take? And if I'd have died 2 years beforehand, where would I be? What's the point? And that was the kind of germination of, I need to find answers. I need to find answers to where Laurie is now. Is there life after death? Why am I putting so much importance on my career, my wealth, all these trappings, but yet I can't take anything with me? I just in my mind, I had to find those answers. And because I grew up in a Catholic background, I knew about God. And in times of stress, you get on your knees and pray. And of course, humans being humans, you go back to your old lifestyle again when everything is fine. But at that time, I went back when I needed those answers about what's important about life. I started to go back to church, and to cut a long story short, I met a man called Brian Hewitt, who works for Christians in Sport. He asked me a question, am I a Christian? I says, no, I believe in God, but I've not made a commitment. So he said, do you mind if someone come around your house and just speaks to you? I says, yeah, no problem at all. So a good friend of mine now called Colin Day, a local church in Streatley, came around my house and we spoke for about 5 hours about how much God loves me. Tell me the Bible is truth. It's irrefutable. Tell me that Jesus Christ was God and man. Telling me that he died for my sins. Telling me how much God loves me. And at that time I just felt, right, I've got to make a decision. I've got to ask God to come into my life. So I said a little prayer, basically saying, God, I've lived the life how I wanted to live, but I really want to get to know you. And that was it. Nothing happened. Come Saturday, playing at Coventry, I played well. And scored a couple of goals, and of course, I revert back to type. Rang up my brother, went down to London, partied, ended up at a young lady's house, and I thought, what a great day. scored, played well, ended up at a young lady's house. Oh, great story for the boys. Come Monday, I'm convicted. Here I am asking God to come in my life, and 2 days later committing adultery. Come Wednesday, I'm nearly in tears. So there's a conviction in my heart. Colin Day left me a little book by Michael Green called A New Dimension. I started to read this book, and I was reading this book. I just felt a sense of peace, a sense of peace that says everything's going to be okay. At the same time, I just sensed that Jesus Christ was in my room. I just sensed that he was in my room, and he was saying everything's going to be okay. And it's still tangible now. That motion, that feeling, or that sense that Jesus Christ is in my room is still so tangible now. And then from that day onwards, I lived my life as a Christian, as a born-again Christian. So it hasn't negated the fact of my behaviour. Got divorced and all sorts of things, because there's consequences to your behaviour. But I know Jesus Christ is real. Jesus Christ, who's fully God, fully man, came down to earth to die for mankind, and he's died for my sins. So therefore, all the things I've done wrong, Christ has paid the price for it. So there's a peace that comes with, you know what, whatever happens, because God's in my life, I've given my life to God, he's died for my sins. When I die, I'll be in heaven. That's the confidence that I have.
The most striking thing about when I read your book was when this chapter, when you start talking about being a born-again Christian, and you talk about being scared to reveal this. Yes. This information to others. And to me, it was so striking because, here you are, you've, lived through a lot of racism earlier in your career, and a lot of people, speaking out against you. And here you are worrying about this problem, people speaking out against you or feeling a way. And I'm curious, why were you so worried or so scared?
Because I felt they would focus on a negative, focus on the partying and the girls and the late nights. And plus, once you put yourself out there, then you're judged a different way. So it wasn't scared per se, I knew because I'm a public figure, I would sooner or later have to say, but when you are a public figure, when you go into the press, they can either turn a story one way or the other story, can they? They can focus on that, but he's a Christian, but this is his lifestyle. So you want it to come out fair. And that was the only fear, really, that you know what the press is like. They can either take one way or the other way. And what I done, I tell the story. The story was, I played quite well, and a friend of mine in the press said, "Cyrille, you're playing like a 21-year-old again. What's the problem? What's happening?" I just felt at the time that it was right to come out and say I'm a born-again Christian. My teammates knew; he's taking the mickey out of me. But you're putting yourself on another level there. You're saying, "This is who I am," and so you all of a sudden you've got to live by a different standard. What people view Christians to be. So, you're putting yourself out there to say, listen, Christians don't do that. You don't do this. You swear you should do that. So it's another way of life, but yet you're held accountable to that, and that's different pressures because you're a human being and you do err.
And so you did so well, as you said, because of that at Aston Villa, and eventually you retired and you got into coaching, and you were the reserve team coach for West Brom for a couple of years.
3 years, yeah.
Why did you stop pursuing coaching to go into being an agent?
Really, if I'm really honest, I didn't grow to love it. I just didn't grow to love it. I pursued it. Having been in football, we all want to stay in football in some sort of environment, and you think the natural thing is to explore, and it was exploration, and say, am I good at this? And with football, there's emotion attached. I love playing football. So I can take all the training or the injuries because I love playing football. But I didn't grow to love coaching. I could do it, but did I love it? No. So I didn't love coaching. Love playing, love watching, but I didn't grow to love. And I think it was difficult for me as well. When I say grow to love, as a reserve team coach, for 3 years, I only had maybe, on average, 5 players to coach. But you're not coaching. You can't coach 5 players. Yeah. It's not coaching, is it?
No.
So you're babysitting and you're doing technical work. You haven't got 20 players to work out systems and do a tactics or do a session. So yes, reserve team coach, but in reality, 5 players every day. You can't do a session. To do a session, you need 15, 16, 17 players to do a session. So back then, you'd maybe possibly grow to enjoy coaching. But having 5 players to coach for 3 years, it's like, and he's reserve team coach. I've got first team players. You've got a mixture, and these boys are not in the first teamers, and it's just a mixture thing. I just didn't grow to learn to love football, and after 3 years, I started to feel like the leather 13 corner. Cyrille Regis, West Brom, in a job which is safe. There's no real. They've changed the managers and the coaches 2 or 3 times. You're not grown into the job. You've not gone to another level. You're not grown into love the sport, the job. You're not grown as a coach. And I felt I could stay there all my life and just be in that position. And I just couldn't do that. Pride, personal ambition, or the fact that, nah, I can't do this. So when Gary Mason come, I resigned. I said, I can't do this. Wasn't enjoying it, wasn't growing as a coach, and I resigned and knew that coaching wasn't for me. Now, if I'd have gone back and got a job with 18 players, that love might have come in, and grown as a coach, and that love of that might come into it. But as soon as I resigned from the coaching job, my nephew Jason Roberts was leaving Bristol Rovers, and I've always been an integral part of his career since he was 14. When I was at Villa, he came to have work experience with the physio at Villa for two weeks. When I was at Wycombe Wanderers, I got him to Wycombe Wanderers as a trial under Martin O'Neill, and he worked there for 2 years. When he moved I got him to Hayes as a young professional. When he went to Wolves, I helped do his deal. So I was quite always interested and a part in his career. So when he was leaving Bristol Rovers, I took an interest in the career. And on the back of that, I became a football agent. So I looked after Jason, worked quite well, and I thought, yeah, this is an aspect. Let me explore it a bit more. And with a friend, I started up a company, became a football agent, and I grew to enjoy it, grew to love it. The aspect I do like about it, yes, it's tough. You're negotiating, looking after players and all that. But there's always one aspect that grabs you. That aspect that grabs me is giving these young boys my experience of what it is to be a pro footballer. Not this rose-tinted coloured glasses view which they have because they've got no experience, but saying, listen, this is what football's really about. This is what you need. This is the mindset you need. This is the lifestyle you need. This is the attitude you need. This is love and desire you need. This will happen in your career. Have you got the tools to handle this? I don't tell a player what to do. It's down to the coach's job. I don't tell them, say, well, how'd you get on? All right, what did the coach say? Because the player's got to do what the coaches want, not what I want or what he wants. Got to do what he wants, what the coaches want. But what I do is help player make the right decisions. But the best part I like about it is the mentoring. Is saying, listen, that view of football you got, it's not what football is. You got a rose tinted colour view. It's quite brutal. This is what's happened. This is the mindset you need. This is the desire you need. And give them anecdotes from my life in terms of how I made it. So hopefully they can incorporate with it. And you've got maybe a 5-10% influence on that player.
And so what is the advice you normally do? Is there one or two pieces of advice that you tend to give out more than?
The basic format for me is talent is never enough. Talent's never enough. You got talent, it wouldn't be there. You got talent. What I see is that young players fail on. It's not the talent. It's because they've got enough of talent. It wouldn't be in academies if they didn't have enough talent. It's like in three broad terms. They don't love the game enough. So what happens in a young player? I see what happens in a young player's mind. I ask them this question all the time. How much do you think your natural talent goes to you being a professional footballer? And they go into, most of them will go anything between 50 and 90%. So they think they're so talented, which they are. It's a big part of being a professional footballer. And so they tend to lean back and go, I'm this talented, I'm going to make it. And I says, no, it's 15, 20%. Talent, your speed, your touch, your football brain, 15, 20%. And so they look at me and they go, and I say, so what's the rest then? The rest are in three broad terms. The emotion side, the love, desire, passion, hunger. They won't fall on the skill side, they fall on one of the three sides. The love, motion, passion, hunger. 2, attitude, which can compromise discipline, sacrifice, mental strength, application, winning mentality, commitment. And 3, character. What are you going to do when things go wrong? What are you going to do when you're not in the side? What are you going to do when manager shouts at you? What are you going to do when your teammate shouts at you? What do you do when you're dropped? It's character. And so they'll fall on one of those things, not really the ability. They'll fall on those things. And football's subjective. They'll fall on those things. It's those things especially big one, is character. It's character. They fall on character. When things go wrong, when a manager wants you to do something you don't want to do, how are you going to do it? Can you do it proficiently? Your teammates have a go at you. When the press have a go at you. When the fans have a go at you. When you're not playing well. When you're low in confidence and you've got to go out and play in front of 50,000 people. How are you going to deal with it? When you're dropped, what are you going to do? When they buy somebody for £10 million ahead of you, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you drop? What are you going to do when you let go? What are you going to do when you ain't in the side? Those are the defining moments of a footballer. If you haven't got character, how to deal with those things, you struggle. You struggle. And I find that all the time. Looking after players is they struggle with character. They struggle with, and you get found out because it's pressurized. What happens when I grew up, we grew up on the streets playing football. So there was no coaches, there was no managers, no referees. No one said you're too small, no one said you're too big. 20 people lined up, all shapes and sizes. You get one captain, you pick the side, and you play football. If you didn't think it was too big for you, you didn't play, or you just played and you got kicked about, you got banged all over the place, and you grew as a player. With the academy system, what you have now, you get, and it's because the way the social society is, kids don't go out and play in the parks no more with their mates. So it's organised. And so you always get a game. They go, well done, Josh. Next week I want you to do this, drop off, do that. Always get a game. You always get a game, don't you? Yeah, because it's about development.
Yeah.
Because you want to do well, you want to learn. Well done, Josh. Next week you're playing. I want you to do this. Oh, okay, great. You do that from 8 to 18. So what do you get? You institutionalised. You go, always get a game. But football changes at 18, 19 to merit. If you don't play well, you don't play. Someone's playing better than you, you don't get in. So one of the driving forces of football, any football club, any team sport is competition for places. If you're not better than me and I'm in a seat, I'm in the side, if you're not better than you, what's going to happen?
Not going to play.
Not going to play.
Yeah.
But you've been playing for 10 years.
So you're going to sulk.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So you got to understand it changes. Doesn't mean you won't. What I'm telling the player is going to change. You got to get your mind around it's going to change. They're not going to give you a game no more. You got to earn the right to play. And if you want to play all the time, you got to play well enough to stay in the side. If you don't, there's somebody younger than you looking at you thinking, I want his job. That's what drives a football club. It's competition for places. If you're in the side, you've got no competition, what happens? You get complacent. If you think, I'm so much better than Josh, I can play at 50%, the manager will put Josh in, I will get complacent. But if you are a top player and I've got a side and I'm looking at Josh and thinking, boy, he's a player. He's focused, he's hungry, he's banging goals for the reserves. You know what, unless I get my act together, he's going to replace me. That drives me. That should drive me to be better. And that's when you have a football club. That drive for each player to get better and better and better.
You had an interesting quote in the book that I want to read. You said, in those days, agents were something you only saw on The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So Bobby Ross and I traveled to the Hawthorns to sign that contract in 1977.
Yeah.
What were agents like in the 70s, and how are they different from agents today?
Well, I think there was a gap. Look in the 70s and there was a gap. And football's changed. You got the Rooney rule, not Rooney rule, sorry. You got the Bosman ruling. You were owned by the club basically. Even if, and it's still the same now. It's not the same now, to be quite fair. It's changed because back then, if you signed a 3-year contract, you signed a 3-year contract for the club. You've done your 3 years. The club could still hold your contract and demand £1 million for you. And you're thinking, why? I've done my contract. Why can't I just walk away? Can't. They still had you in terms of the transfer they wanted from you. Now it's different. After 24 in England, you get to end your contract 24, just walk out. Freedom of movement. So back then you never had that. So players, you didn't know, if the club said to you, negotiate a contract, you're on £100 a week, I'm giving you £200. How do you know that's your market worth? How do you know that somebody else is on £600? How do you know? If you don't know your market worth, what do you know? Where do you know what your market worth is? You don't know. You go up, you negotiate, and you're told, well, we ain't got enough money, or you're on £100 a week, we'll double your money, 200 quid. And you go, okay. You don't know whether other clubs are after you. You don't know whether, really you should be on 400 quid a week, and if you're a player, doesn't mean you're a good negotiator. Doesn't mean you're a good negotiator, you can go in and negotiate your own finances. Doesn't mean that. It means you're a good player, but doesn't mean you're a good negotiator. It doesn't mean that at all. So players used to go and negotiate their own contract. You're a player. Then you've got conflict of interest. If I don't sign this contract, is the manager going to play me? You've got all these issues going around in your head. And the managers used to, you're very lucky son giving you this money, because you never play this game again, I'm signing this to 200 quid a week. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, there's no alternative. What's the balance there? And so there was a gap in the market. And it was, at this time, players weren't earning a lot of money, and so you had financial advisors coming in and earning money, and I think the financial advisors saw a gap. So a lot of financial advisors was turning around and saying, you know, I can look after your money, I can give advice on contracts, and years later, the football agent was born and saying, listen, you know, I can look after you, not just your money, but I can negotiate for you. And players are going, yeah, that's not bad. You know, agents can find out, you know, what other people are on, what other people at different clubs are on. That club might like you. All of a sudden, the player understands where he fits in the market. So the agent finds out where the player fits in the market, where the player fits in the football club, and go, this is what I want. If he doesn't get it, well, if you think that's the market, go to the market and let the market give it to you. And so that's what happens. So now you got, and it's just not football agents, because it's a poor connotation, where career advisors. And sometimes you've got to say to a player, not the right time to move. It's not the right time. This club that wants you is not the right time, or that style of play wouldn't suit you. That's why how we do it at Stella. It's not a case of just doing a deal because the player might go to the wrong club and doesn't fulfil his potential because he's gone to the wrong club. There's a bad experience. Does the manager, is the manager going to play the right way for him? Does he fit into that style of play? Can he be flexed enough to fit in that style of play? Is it the right time for him to move? You know, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. Is he mature enough to move? Can he go abroad or another part of the country? How does he fit in? How does he settle in? Is the club stable? You know, is the owner selling it and is ripping the assets out of it? Is it the right club to go to? Is the manager, you're going for a manager might get sacked in 6 months' time. New manager comes in, and you're what? I left this club to go this other club. Manager goes, I'm left in limbo. So you're giving him, the player, advice. You are giving, these are the options all the time, but it's your decision. I'll give you my opinion, but it's your decision. That's how I work. That's how we work at Stella. We go, right, leaving the club, this is happening, let's sit down. Let's sit down with your mum, your dad, you, your wife, whatever it is. Let's sit down, let's look at all the options. Look at all the options. Look at this, that might happen, this might happen, this happen. No. Listen, you know what, in our experience of being in the game, all these years, we should go for option A, but you got A, B and C, what do you think, your career? We'll get a lot of the time they go, yeah, you're probably right, because we've got experience in that. But every now and then they go, nah, I want to do this. Okay, fine. Your career, you do it. Your choice. We're still there for you. And that's how an agent works. You're not puppet masters saying, you've got to do this, we've got to do that. It's, hold on, here are the options. Here what we think that's in the market. Here what we think you're the player at. You've got your wife, you've got your kids, blah, blah, blah. You're at this stage of your career, you know, you need to move, or doors opening. Just give them the options and go, listen, in our opinion, my opinion, I've been a player, coach, agent for 40 years, I think you should take A. If you want to take B, full square behind you. It's your choice, your career.
And your book came out in 2010, and it's been 7 years since then. What if you had to add a chapter to your book about the last 7 years? What would it be about?
I think as you get older, I think you definitely get more philosophical about life. You definitely I'm nearly 60, so you've gone through a lot of gambits of things, and I think what I would kind of at this time and juncture of my life is, as a Christian, there's something called a royal law. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and love your neighbour as yourself. And I think when you're young, you wish you were somebody else. You wish you had that characteristic or this characteristic, or someone's got that characteristic or that hair or that body. But I think as you get older, you love yourself for who you are, because you are unique. And that would be part of I would say, you know what? Love myself because I'm unique. I am different from you, but I'm unique. And I love myself because of my uniqueness. And that would be it.
What's something that you believe that most people do not?
What's something?
Yeah.
Most people. It would have to be from a Christian point of view.
From any point of view.
Any point of view. Most people, I think a lot of people believe there's a God.
Yeah, I'd say that's most people think that. So
yeah, most people believe there's a God, but I think a lot of people don't search. Go, if there is a God, well, how do I get to know him? You know what I mean? And I think I went on my quest on that. Right, I heard there's a God. Grew up in a Catholic background, but I didn't know him. But circumstances of life throws at you and go, I thought life was like this, but this has happened, that has happened, or this part of the world's happening, that's happening in the world. There's something wrong. You know what I mean? Justice, fairness, wars. There's something wrong. We live in England. We're blessed. Look at the papers, Syria, migration, Africa, favelas in Brazil. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. What? Why? And is it going to stay like that? These questions come up, and those things are important. And you've got to get to a point that it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It makes sense.
Do we have a couple more minutes?
Sure, as long as you want.
This goes back to something we talked briefly mentioned earlier in our conversation. You went to China in 1978 when the first English club, and at the time I believe Mao had just died, and they were still feeling the effects of the Cultural Revolution. What was it like going there, and what did you take away from the experience?
It's amazing. I mean, amazing experience, and I think me, Laurie and Brendan, we've done everything. Other players weren't so much because, they were used to cinemas and restaurants and outside of all that. And yes, it was this was communist China.
Yeah, wait. So what do you mean by everything you did?
Well, there was a social. We've done everything. Mean tombs. If there was a trip going out to do anything, we'd do it. Where some of the boys, do you want to go and do this? No. You want to go and see the moon tombs? No. They were used to going down a pub or the cinema. You never had these things. You couldn't walk down the streets on your own. You couldn't get around. It was constrained to X. But in terms of the Chinese showing us China at the time, everything that was on, me, Laurie and Brendan jumped on it and just looked around and embraced their own culture, where for some lads it's like, can't wait to get out of here. So what's the first thing that comes to mind, like an activity that you did, or maybe it might be an experience you had with a couple Chinese fans or something? Yeah, they hadn't seen black people before. They were looking up, coming up, saying American Joe. We only see this in films, like black people with hair and American Joe. Well, they stared at us, but you look at the culture. There was no cars, millions of bicycles. It was regimented. You only saw 5 colours in terms of clothes. Everybody wore the Chuma Mao suits: grey, black, dark blue, green, and that's it. Everybody wore Chuma. It was just great, and bikes everywhere. There's no colour. Very regimented, very respectful. And very social. The women done the same amount of work as men. Very, very respectful. And just totally never had the sort of freedoms we had in terms of travelling where you wanted to do, how many kids you want, different work you wanted to do. It was very organised. And they've married. I'd love to go back now because I heard it's a totally different world altogether. Where they've managed to marry kind of Western commercial marketing concepts with Maoism, that communist underbelly, and they've been very successful at it. Brendan had just gone back there. He said, "When I went back there, I saw Porsches and Bentleys and all sorts. When we were there, all saw that only the government people had cars. Back then in '78, everybody had bikes. But the food was, I mean, we had all the food, beautiful.
Did you have any, like, I won't say delicacy, but anything weird? Like,
I had 19 courses of Peking duck, from the brains to the web. Yeah.
19 courses, wow.
19 courses of Peking duck.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so every part of it. And I'm very eclectic like that. I will try anything. You ask my wife, you know, I'd eat bushmeat. I'll try it. I've just come back from French Guiana, and long story short, my cousin's husband, where French Guiana is the equatorial jungle. It rains all the time, it's humid and it's dense. But he goes out and he shoots game. And when we was there, he had a crocodile tail in the fridge. And I went, yeah. He said, we're going to cook this up today. He went, yeah, okay. We're all sitting down there. He's gone out there, he's cooked it up. We had crocodile tail, curried crocodile tail, beautiful.
Oh, sounds delicious. What's your favorite food? What's your favorite food? Like, you're on death row. You got one meal left. What do you got?
Oxtail.
Okay.
Oxtail. And I think my mum used to do a lovely oxtail. Oxtail with runner beans and with peppers. Nice and hot. Yeah, oxtail.
Yeah, nice spicy peppers. So.
Yeah. Scotch bonnet peppers. Lovely.
Sounds lush. To wrap this up, because I've taken enough of your time, what requests do you have for the audience? I mean, you do plenty of charity work. Is there anything, a request that you want to make for the audience?
The most important thing, I'm going back to God again, because I think if you're a Christian, fine. Just encourage you to continue to grow in your relation with God. But if you don't know, well, I would say search. If you don't know God, you haven't got a relation with God, search. I don't think whether you're a footballer, multi-millionaire, whatever, we're all going to die. That's 100%. We're going to die. But I would want people to think, well, I want to know there is a choice that you have. There is a choice that you have. But you got to make that choice. You got to look for that choice. You got to find that choice. And after you make the right decision. Because where you spend eternity, even if you're gambling, man, you're here for 80, 85 years. And then what? Forgotten, really, haven't you? Really? Had a great life, played football, travelled the world, known, fame. 10 years' time when I'm dying, I'll be forgotten. So, where will you be? What's life about? Is this all it is? I'm saying it's not, but you've got to search for yourself. And my desire for everybody is to be in heaven. So I would say, search. If you're not a Christian, search. The Bible does say, seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be open. So you've got to do a bit of work. You've got to sincerely seek. And trust me, God will show up.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to it on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Acast, or any podcasting catching app. Want to learn more about the guests and go behind the scenes? Then go to my website, www.footballautobiographyshow.com, and subscribe to my newsletter. Also, if you like the show, or even if you hated it, leave a comment on either my Twitter page @footballautobio or my Facebook page, The Football Autobiography Show. I welcome and would appreciate any feedback from you all. Thanks for listening. Take care.